what would you say a professor can do? Would it be better for the teaching community to probably take some time to just give them this overview to say, hey, listen, this is, it's better for us. You'll be a better learner. I'll be better delivering it, right? And rather than sort of just saying that, we'll try the same old method and everything should fall in place.
Yeah. So you're really asking the question. We've been talking about focused on the learner, but you're really trying to ask the question, okay, what can teachers do?
Yeah.
And there's, and again, you can use that same approach to thinking, what are the aspects of learning you want to help your students with first? Because there's all these, there's infinite number of things that you can do to help your students learn. So what is your priority that you want? So say, for instance, in motivation, one of the things that's helpful for students is they sometimes, and this happens more in college than younger years, but it happens in high school as well, is that the students don't understand why I'm learning this. And so how do you get motivated for something that you're just doing because you're told you have to do?
Yeah.
So having enough time where they're investigating, they're looking on YouTube for people why they think this course is important, or talking to people like in their careers or something that say, okay, why do you need this math? And a lot of times teachers are afraid that there's not a good reason for them to know this. And so then they should be really thinking, well, maybe I shouldn't be teaching this to my students.
Yeah. Good point.
So it depends. The other thing, for instance, is, and we talked about how the students nowadays are getting overwhelming pieces of information. And it's the psychology term is cognitive overload, where they get so much information, they just cannot learn it. Okay, so you're impeding them. So it's important for faculty to set up this information. So rather than think of a lecture as just dumping a brain dump, bringing all this content in and giving it to your students, what might help the students is giving them a frame of reference, giving them something that they can put perspective with the material that they're just hearing a lecture. If they can understand a little bit better of the lecture what is really important, then they'll remember the important parts better. I've already mentioned that students have trouble figuring out of all the information that you give them, some of it's more important than others, and students just don't know that. So if a faculty can help the students understand what's important, they will learn better. So for example, one way that faculty have tried to do this is before the students even crack open a book on the particular course, they'll get a test. Test doesn't count for anything. And what it does is you make the students guess what the right answer is. So they're calling upon all the previous things that they've learned to allow them to maybe guess on this answer, and they guess the answer. So then when they encounter it during the actual class, they pick up, oh yeah, that was a question that came up and I totally missed it. And this is how it should have. They can see that. And then it turns out when you do that, it prepares the students, because the students are now informed, oh yeah, this is important enough to be on the test. Okay. And then they start to, this is my answer. This is the answer I had, but this is something that I learned that's different than what I thought it would be. And so I really, and that reinforces the learning. So there's lots of these strategies. Right. Again, it depends on what area of learning that you want to impact. So that's why we call it, when I subtitle strategic learning, a holistic approach to studying. Yeah. Holistic because there's so many different areas that impacting your learning. And so what our students do in the course is they have to choose, what are the things that I want to work on first? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. And then what are those techniques that they think that they want to, strategies they want to use? And then brainstorming it, they have a chance to brainstorm with their classmates. So we try to, even though it's on Zoom, they have some time where they're in teams where they can compare notes. I do this to that. And then someone says, oh, that's really interesting. I'm going to try that. So there's all these little techniques that are important that students pick up with each other. But I think the most important thing is that most of the students prior to coming into the class think, for me to do better in my studying, I need to work harder. I'm not doing well enough because I'm lazy and I'm not working hard enough. That's the number one reason that the students feel that they're not succeeding. And that's usually not the case, especially for
Okay.
our students at NUS. They're
Mm-hmm.
smart enough, but they aren't tactical enough.
Okay.
They have to figure out, for instance, what's important. They have to motivate themselves. They have to be healthy to be able to learn optimally. And if they do all of those other things, then learning, actually even spending less time because of this curve, they may be spending too much time and they're half
Mm-hmm.
asleep when they're trying to study.
Yeah.
So you can start to see that each learner has to be, as you said perfectly, they have to be more self-aware,
Mm.
and they have to be able to diagnose self-diagnose, or they can go to a coach. So
Yeah.
part of the reason why students come into the class is they share their learning plan with the TAs or with me and say, can you
Yeah.
give me some advice?
Yeah.
Okay. But
Yeah.
and I have a forum, I have a website, which I
Yeah.
think you could probably give to your listeners,
Sure.
that you can go on and ask questions. But you can imagine that just having different approaches to learning and experimenting with all those approaches, seeing what makes a difference for them, and then incorporating that in their strategic learning plan makes for better learners.
Okay.
And that's what we hope for everyone.